Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
Thank you, over. PBR 3, gang, over, by standing by, over.
Hello, hello, hello. Let's get the live stream audio checks out of the way a little early today as I am running a bit behind. As you can tell, we usually stream this at around 10:30 p.m. or a.m. Yeah, 10:30 p.m. 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6:30 UTC. And we're a little bit later today as it is post-Thanksgiving holiday and Black Friday here in the United States and probably most of Europe. I think you guys also do Black Friday sales out there as well. Maybe it's just a United States thing. You'll have to let me know in the chats there. If you are in the public chat, that being YouTube, which is the only public stream that's running. So for those of you that are in any of the private streams that are going to be leaving work a little early today and want to jump in and listen away from work, you can jump into the Landy's Crypto Corner YouTube channel's live stream as well. That is the public one. So, but yeah, let me know if you can hear me okay across the various chats. I see, yep, already getting confirmation in a few of these chats. Very good, thank you. And we're going to get rolling here in a little under 3 minutes. And today's going to be a little bit of a chill stream. We got a tired Landy on our hands here. That's I'm a little under the weather, but mainly because of being absolutely tired. So, or absolutely exhausted, I should say. All right, I'll be back on the microphone in about 2.5 minutes or so. Man, I got the Funky Beats playlist on today, apparently. All right. Do a little bit of perusing of the chats here prior to getting started. Got Bobby and Spin in the public chat that are actually chatting. How you guys doing? Hope if you celebrated Thanksgiving, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. If you didn't, I hope you had a great day. And yeah, if you are in the public chats, that being YouTube or Twitch, I was getting a few people on Twitch here and there. So if you are in one of those chats, go ahead and jump in and hang out. Feel free to chat. If you're on YouTube, you must be a subscriber of the channel. Of course, that's free. And that way you can jump into the chats. I do have subscribers only turned on because of bots and bot spam. Yes, this is a very small YouTube channel that is growing, but I still get a lot of bots in the early part of the stream here. So I do have it set to subscriber chat only, and that is free. I don't get much in Twitch. So if you want to chat over in Twitch, I actually would advise you to head over to the YouTube channel there at Landy's Crypto Corner. You can follow the link in the main profile page. All right, let's get this rolling. Let's get the computer, yeah, the music even under control on this particular computer over here. Bring that down, and we're gonna roll right into our Friday live stream. And get that turned off on my side over here. All right, cool. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is Friday, November 24th, 2023. It is Black Friday. And just a quick reminder, if you guys are using TradingView, I don't have any affiliate links or anything, but they are running a pretty good Black Friday special. So wanted to get that out there. If you don't already have some sort of a premium plan, they have really deep discounts on their premium plans. It allows you to add more indicators, save more charts, get more layouts, all that kind of stuff. So just a little disclaimer there ahead of our stream here. Today we're going to look at Bitcoin, we'll look at Dixie, we'll look at gold and traditional markets. And we're going to start off with Bitcoin. We're going to do a little bit of a follow-up to the last Bitcoin in 60 seconds shorts video. You can find that in the shorts feed on Landy's Crypto Corner or on x.com, formerly Twitter. You can find it at CryptoLandy. I will typically pin it there. And that gets kind of buried quickly on YouTube. So if you can't find it on YouTube, you can always check the X or Twitter profile, my main page there. And it should, the latest video should always be pinned to the top of my profile. And to answer a few questions, if you want to get the Landy bands, they are free. They are typically in the link in the video description. And if you can't find it there, you can also find it in the main description under my X profile as well. The Landy bands are free. They are private, and they are being worked on. Almost ready to introduce some new features and clean up some of the back-end code there as well. So hopefully that should be within the next couple of weeks here. There should be some cool new features headed to the Landy bands. And then eventually it will be released for free and searchable under the indicators tab in TradingView. So right now it is free. It's just private. That's all. But as long as you follow the link, you should be able to add it to your chart. And then give me some feedback. Let me know how you like it, what kind of features you'd like to see added. And eventually there's going to be a strategy tester that you can customize in it. So, and that strategy, the initial strategy that will be built in will be Bollinger Band volatility based with a little bit of directionality or momentum analysis in that particular strategy backtester for Stoke, along with Bollinger Band momentum and volatility. So it will be a bit of a custom strategy, but I will lay that out in a dedicated video on how to use that strategy. And it's got an incredibly high hit rate. So we're looking at like an 80 to 85% hit rate on the daily and under time frames, and nearly it's almost 100. It's 100%, I think, on like the monthlies and stuff like that. So, and that's for Bitcoin. You will have to use that strategy backtester panel in that would be this strategy backtester panel. You'll have to use that for other assets or indices or coins, cryptocurrencies, in order to evaluate, what the hit rate is, and then you can adjust parameters from there. So, and then eventually we will introduce a build your own strategy into this indicator as well. That's probably not going to come until after it is fully released and freely searchable on TradingView's indicator tab. All right. Now, starting with the kind of following up with where I had left off in the last live stream and the Bitcoin in 60 seconds video, we can see that Bitcoin did hit the upside targets that I had talked about. I had mentioned, Bitcoin was trading down here. It had lost the basis band on the candle of the 21st, and it lost the weekly here at 36,200. And I had mentioned, it could head down and run the low side structure here into the lower first. But if it traded up and got back above the basis band and the weekly at 36,200, I was looking for it to head up to the weekly somewhere around 37.7 to 38K. We did get that in that candle the very next day. So those targets were hit to the upside. The next upside target was the upper second standard deviation to the monthly. And we have now hit that. So, it didn't directly hit the monthly overhead resistance here on Coinbase, but it did on quite a few derivative exchanges. So we had the wick high coming in here at 38,454. I was calling for around 38.5. The monthly is actually at 38,491 here on Coinbase. So basically 38.5. If it does trade and close above there by the end of the month, that is something that we're going to discuss in just a moment, but you probably already know where that's headed. Closures above there have always led to, all-time highs, and we're going to get to that in just a moment in terms of the upper second standard deviation on the monthly. But, if Bitcoin can close another candle above this weekly here at 37.7, I do expect it to keep running this top side. If it does break out above and close above the upper second standard deviation, I would look for a little bit of expansion to the upside in a more aggressive manner, targeting not just that 38.5, but the weekly above it at $39,000 to $40,000, maybe slightly above there. We might see like a swing of that area and then back down for support if it does head that way. Now, if we get a legitimate breakout on a closing basis above this weekly on a daily or higher time frame, I would eventually look for Bitcoin to trade up to the next weekly area at 41.8 to 42K and possibly more as well. We'll take a look at that in some of the longer term time frames when we look at that monthly again. Now, if Bitcoin does lose the 37.7 to this upper first at around 37,500, I would keep an eye on that basis, which is now coming in at 36.6 to that weekly at 36.2. If it drops that area, I'd look right back to the lower first around 35.7, right around this close open structure down here. And below there, the monthly at 35K to the lower second, which is coming in right at that weekly at 34,750, where we had that beautiful, beautiful wick, like right into the weekly within pennies of it. One of the closest tags of a support that we've seen in quite a long time, outside of like the actual lows when we were talking about those lows back at 15.5 and 18s and all that kind of stuff. And then around the $20,000 region, it was hitting, on wicks, like directly on prior resistance areas on the way back up. Now, in this case, Bitcoin is going to have momentum to the upside here. Close over close, this is a Stoke. This is not a Stoke RSI. So this is measuring close over close momentum. And so that's what a regular Stoke does. And in this case, it is positioned even to the upside, and that is the momentum pivot is going to be 37,500. So again, you want to see Bitcoin holding this upper first standard deviation around that 37,500 area to keep that Stoke momentum cross to the upside. Now, if it did cross back down, that's still only an initial cross, and you need to see it close a subsequent follow-up candle below the next pivot. And if you are looking for this particular indicator, it is the BA reverse Stoke panel. And you can find that for free on TradingView. So just search BA reverse Stoke panel, and it has your momentum pivots. I added the overbought, oversold, and then the 0 and 100% up there just to have a little bit more visual interest going on here, as well as the, I believe I added the 60 and 40% for the bullish and bearish control zones. I don't quite recall now. I think I did. Now, let's go ahead and jump over to our normal streaming chart away from our Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart and just observe structure and bands here. This is an upwards grind. So, on Friday's live stream, we looked at this and said like, hey, this is really, biased to the upside. I know that there's a lot of, bearish points to be made if you're just doing patterns. But in this case, this is a bullish movement to the upside when looking at the momentum, when looking at the angle of the standard deviations on the Bollinger Bands as well. So more bias above the basis to go tap on that upper second, upper third area if it can get past that upper first, which it did. And then it's more likely to hold the lower standard deviations away from the basis band should it head down there. So we do have the lower first there at 35,700. We've got the lower second there at that 34,800, or basically that 34,750 weekly. And then that lower third is down there at around $34,000. So this is what you want to see. You want to see the bands all, kind of lining up within the local range to the downside, and you want to see them positioned, basically up and to the right for a more bullish take on things. Now, when looking at the 2-day, we can see that the lower second and lower first, as well as the lower third here, as I go really out of order. So basically the lower standard deviations, first, second, and third, are all swooping up to price action here as the basis is, slowly gaining on price action. And Bitcoin is currently continuing to hold in and around this upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands, which is coming in at 37,400. Now, if it does continue to trade up here, I expect it to go test that upper second standard deviation, coming in at $40,000, 40,100 to be exact. Now, the upper first is kind of it's going to be the basis for this next bit of analysis here. If you do see 37,400 to 500 dropped, obviously that would be a momentum shift on the daily, at least initially. On the 2-day here, which is closing with today's candle, if we did see that dropped on a close, then I would be looking somewhere around where the basis updates. Now, I do expect the basis to rise to around 35.5. It's currently at around $35,000. No, I'm sorry, it's at 34,700. I expect it's around this last wick low, basically. It's just below there. And that was the 34,750 weekly strike. So now I expect it to be somewhere above there, around the 35 to 35.5. I'll give it a little bit of slush there, or somewhere across the top side of this consolidation, this upward and to the right consolidation here after this order block candle that was coming in at 33.9 to around 34,500. Now, the wicks above there is where I want to see that basis band. So that coming into, major moving average, which the basis band is a 20 simple. So we want to see that above the prior consolidation before this next little move up. We see the lower first is now coming in at 32. Now, this is above the breakout. That's perfect. That's what we were looking for. Close over close on Wednesday. I think I said Monday or Friday or whatever. Today is Friday. I meant Wednesday because that was our last live stream. Lower second standard deviation, nice and curled up there, almost at 29,300. I do want to see that somewhere around the $30,000 region, somewhere above this last little spike high. We'll see what we get at close today, but we do see that, volatility is still remaining high in terms of the Bollinger Bands, so Bitcoin can still run the bands. That's not out of the question, but what we are starting to see is the possibility of Bitcoin possibly getting re-expansion of BBWP within the bands. So that does mean that things will get volatile within the band structure. That's not confirmed yet. We're only just now seeing BBWP go sideways as the moving average drops. So what we would need to see is for volatility to pick up. The only way volatility is going to pick up is closures above the upper first standard deviation that start to push into the upper second. That's where you'll see from here volatility pick up. Otherwise, what we'll see is a cool down if we see the basis continue to move up, price moves sideways, and or if price moves towards the basis. We'll see further contraction of the Bollinger Bands, and then we will see BBWP continue to head down a little bit, and or at least go into a sideways consolidation, give it some more time to consolidate in terms of volatility. We'll see a quick cool down, and then we'll look for the spike later on. But if we do see this move back up, so let's say today, moving average drops, BBWP either goes sideways or sideways and up slightly or up. What we're then looking for is the next 2-day closure, which would be coming in on on Sunday with the weekly. What we'd be looking for is for it to start pushing that upper second standard deviation remaining above the upper first, and then getting above that upper second standard deviation to kick off re-expansion to the upside, and or just grind that upper second standard deviation to the upside. Excuse me. This is a bullish structure, so can't fight it. 3-day looking the same way. So our close open, we're starting to get what we wanted to see. The lower standard deviations all curling up nicely. Still want to see that lower second above this prior higher low at 26,500, but we have the lower first quite a bit above the highs of that consolidation before the breakout. Now it's coming in at around 28,400. So that 28,426 area just above the weekly at 28K. So it's coming into prior dailies that we had marked when price was trading down there. The basis is now at 32,600. So it is above this ever important area. If we were to see Bitcoin really fall apart below the weekly here at 34,750, the biggest area is this daily at 32,400 to the breakout area. Daily, weekly, monthly support resistance area at 31.8 that was only tested once before it broke out. So just a reminder for those that may not know why this area is important. This was a big area over here that was tested once, and this was my primary upside from the lows that we were looking at before longer form consolidation. If you weren't around then, just know that we've been calling this market to a T for a very long time. And it's very simple analysis. You don't need anything complex. You don't need complex indicators. It's just very simple analysis. Trend. Man, hold on. Let me take a drink here. Trend, support, resistance, volatility drives momentum. That's been the basis of our analysis for a very long time here. It's what I've taught many of the people who have learned TA from me. And we've been like on the money since the all-time highs, calling out even going back to for those of you that remember, going all the way back to when I started really doing a lot of this publicly. It was the reaccumulation. So the distribution from the first top in 2021 to the reaccumulation and spring, the Wyckoff reaccumulation to the new all-time high. And I was actually very cautious. There was a lot of people looking for much deeper. I was very cautious. And when everything dropped like 53.8, it was 55.4 and then 53.8 were the big ones. And I said, this is pretty much over. We've been very accurate and using very simple methods. So just know that it's not because we're doing anything special. It is because there's tried and true methods for picking out where price is going to go. Now, that's very different. Evaluating where price is going to go and trading that move are two different things. And we're only doing the analysis portion during these streams. Eventually, I will get into trading tips and trading plan stuff, but that's going to be coming later. But in this case, we've been very accurate with this. And I do think if we do see conditions fulfilled, closures on the 3-day above 36,700, 36.8 area, eventually we'll see things push up to the upper second. Currently coming in just below $41,000. Excuse me about all the coughing. I'm actually probably getting sick for real. Even though I joked about that in the chat just a little while ago, I probably caught something. Anyway, basis coming in at 32,600, just above that daily area. The lower first has now moved up into position there, at, like I said, at that 28.46 zone, which is a daily support area. Prior overhead resistance that got tagged on this wick here, then came down, found support, and then legged up from there in higher low fashion. So All right, so 4-day is going to be closing with today's daily and 2-day candle. We see the upper first is here at 33,500. I would like to see that just one tick higher. It's actually in a really good position. If it is dropped, be aware of where the basis band is, of course. This is at 30,800. I expect this to move somewhere around 31 to 31.5, around the prior highs. And then if we do see closures above the upper first, that brings into play the upper second, again at $39,000 to $40,000 range, maybe a little bit above there. And we do see that BBWP is beginning to cool down, and we might get a Stoke. I'm not a Stoke turn. We might actually get a Stoke turn as well. We'll look at that in just a moment. But as it stands right now, when focusing on volatility, on the 4-day, we might get BBWP under the moving average, and what we'll need to pay attention to is if the moving average curls over with it. So if it does, what we'll see is residual expansion of the bands to the upside, and we'll see curling up of the lower bands, and then we'll come back and reevaluate, because then it's more likely that, as long as it's above the basis, it's going to test the upper bands or the upper standard deviations, but they will continue to get residual expansion to the upside to some of those deeper targets that we've talked about. Bringing those into play. Now, if we do start to see, tightening of the bands, then we can reevaluate for volatility picking up. But we are starting to see that drop. But I do suspect if we're above the bands, we will see residual expansion of the upper bands as the lower bands catch up. And that will offer up some of those upside targets, maybe volatile moves that then things cool down into a little bit of sideways. And then we come back to it. The 5-day, painting the same picture, it's headed towards that upper second, which is at around $39,000 at that weekly overhead. And that is going to be the primary area, $39,000 to $40,000, slightly above there. If we did see a breakout, the upper third is giving room all the way to 43,340. And if we saw any kind of a breakout above the upper second on the 5-day, which I will tell you is, I would be very cautious of price in that area because of the spread of the Bollinger Bands, and that would likely turn into a wick. Doesn't mean that it wouldn't still be bullish in the longer term timeframes like the 5-day, but maybe a close, maybe a wick or something if it does head up that way. In the next couple of days, we will see continued expansion of the Bollinger Bands here on the 5-day, but we are getting very, very close to them crossing. But crossing is not the same as both the BBWP moving down or headed down along with the moving average. So we could see it cross under, moving average remain up, maybe go sideways, and then volatility picks right back up and picks that moving average up. So just keep that in mind. And in this case, it's going to be more heavily weighted to upside standard continuation. So in this case, we're going to watch, just like on the 4-day, we're going to watch close over close, the upper standard deviations continue to expand past price to some of those deeper targets, maybe even above 41.8 to 42K, which is the weekly area above here. And that would be... of course, on any breakouts above this monthly, weekly area at 38.5 to 39 to 40K, above there, then we have that 41.8 to 42K. But just above there is the monthlies, and that is at 45 to 47. And, and then, of course, the wick high at 48.5 up there. And that will likely come into play as long as Bitcoin is on the top side of the basis band, while we see the Bollinger Band spread continue to the upside for the upper standard deviations, and the lower standard deviations start to curl up and compress and race up with that basis band. So in this case, above the basis band, it's really going to open up some of those deeper targets. And then we come back to it later. I mean, this is still expansion to the upside. It is not, the move is not over. And especially when looking at the weekly, You can see that Bitcoin is just grinding up against that upper second standard deviation. And that is currently coming in at right around $38,000. So above there, I would look for, aggressive expansion to continue. We are still seeing expansion to the upside. And man, this is going to be a rough one, huh? Give me 1 second. Now, the expansion to the upside on the weekly, from the look of BBWP right now, it's got a lead over the moving average at the moment. But what you want to see, if you're going to be bullish for, a quicker move to the upside, is around $38,000 to get closed above by Sunday. And that is because that will keep volatility high. It will keep the bands expanding quickly and give Bitcoin the ability to move to the upside in larger chunks, let's say. Now, to the downside, the upper first standard deviation coming in right at the highs, the low side of the high structure up here, and that is at $34,000. You want to see Bitcoin closing weeklies above there and just kind of consolidating if it's not going to move up. Basis band is the next area to pay attention to, prior to close and then after close this weekend. We want to see this above the close opens down here at 30,600 to 800. It's very, very close there at $30,000. I suspect the basis will be above there and preferably even above the wick highs. That's where you'd want to see it. I do suspect it's going to move somewhere around the mid $30,000 region to $31,000. And then we want to start seeing the lower standard deviations get an upward curvature. And in this case, the lower first is at $26,000. We want to see it above this prior low wick and close open. That low wick's coming in at 26,500 and the close open is 27,186 on the weekly. And then eventually we want to see that lower second standard deviation catch up to price action. That's usually going to happen in one of two ways. Either Bitcoin's going to start going vertical or it's going to hang out on the highs. We see another compression and then we look for either expansion to the upside or downside. So that is a hot tip for you. The weekly is pivoted at 34,736. Bitcoin's trading quite a bit above there right now, which is good. The 5-day is pivoted at 37,800. So we do want to see, Bitcoin's trading right around there. We want to see the 5-day close in there. That's going to be this weekend as well with the weekly. Correct? Yeah. Weekly and 5-day are going to be closing at the same time. The 4 days closing today, closures above 37,600. We'll keep that pointed to the upside. 3-day, 37,750. Now that is going to be closing with the weekly candle. 2-day, we got 37,600. So, pivots are right around price action. But if we see the 2-day close above 37,600, I want to note that when it crosses back up, that pivot number is going to move to the last low side area. So, it's likely going to give it plenty of room to keep heading up, to be quite honest. Closing above the upper first is going to be the first indication, then check on momentum later today after close. And maybe I'll do a shorts video today where I go over the 2-day closure because that's going to be pretty interesting coming into the weekly, as the pivot's likely to end up somewhere around, I'm guesstimating here on the initial cross, maybe, and that is provided it closes above 37,600. Then I'd estimate it to be somewhere around the $35,000 region, maybe slightly above there. Yeah, because where's the wick low? 35,633. So somewhere around the $36,000 region. Of course, we'll get confirmation of that after close today. Let's go ahead and remind ourselves of where the monthly upper second standard deviation is as Bitcoin is moving in towards it. 38,500 to 600 is the upper second standard deviation, this low over here on a close on the monthly. So 38,500 to 6. Now it is adjusting up as prices come in to test it. and it's currently moved up to about 38,538. If we see closures above 38, 600 or so, or above that upper second standard deviation, every single time in Bitcoin's history, I know I've said this so many times already, it has created a new all-time high. Once you see monthly volatility expansion, we have a compression right now, and this would then lead to a quick compression to expansion. So if we get a close above, you'll see residual compression and then expansion. Now, that would be from the band perspective. We're already seeing expansion of volatility right now. So, expansion is all but confirmed at this point on the monthly, but there is more than one criteria. Just because we're seeing expansion doesn't mean that things can't reject the upper second standard deviation, maybe come down for support at the upper first or the basis, wherever. Maybe we see a big dump out back to the lower first or something like that. That's very, very unlikely from the current position, but it's not out of the picture. What you want to see is a closure above the upper second. Then we can start targeting the highs over here, because that would be a recovery of the close open structure here at 38.5. And then we target, the close opens up here at that 45 to 48. And then above there, we can just, go wick to wick area, 50,000, 53,000, and then low side of the highs, and then all-time high again. And then, prior cycles for Bitcoin, when it hit that upper second standard deviation, it was already around the close open of the prior cycle's all-time high. So it was very easy for it to just expand and then head right towards a new all-time high, right? Take the wicks out, whatever it might be, and then make a new all-time high. In this case, Bitcoin still has some work to do to get above this monthly lower high. Once 48.5 is taken out, it's all-time high and higher at that point. And I'll come back to it probably a lot later, because the green button is probably the only thing that's going to be used during that time period. Yes, it will be volatile on lower term time frames, and you can probably get some scalps in, but you got to be careful, because the bid will probably outstrip the ask on just about every move once we start to see that monthly expansion. So you got to be very careful if you're going to try to get in the way. Instead of catching knives to the downside, you're catching bullets to the upside. So you don't want to do that. All right. Let me go ahead and peruse the chats here real quick and see if there's any questions before I move on to Dixie here. The monthly pivot, yeah. Monthly pivot's at 27,636. You'll see that this will oscillate quite a bit as price moves around during the monthly. But we're heading in towards the end of the month next week, and it's going to be a big topic, right? Because we got December, and then the end of the year, which is the yearly. We'll have the fourth quarter close coming into, first quarter. And the quarterly's already turned to the upside for momentum. And let's get off of currencies and bonds here. Go to a longer form chart, 24,400 on the quarterly, and from a structure standpoint, Bitcoin just has to get above the upper first, and then it's running that upper second and looking for quarterly expansion. It's not expanding just yet in terms of BBWP. So there is time on the quarterly, which also means that if Bitcoin on the monthly is starting to breach, like let's say the upper second, we see expansion there, we're probably looking at like a year's long or more expansion. Now, maybe not, because, we have seen that the expansion has gotten weaker over time for the quarterly, because it's just been up and to the right. I mean, like since the beginning of Bitcoin's charted history, it's just up and to the right. And in this case, I would be looking, expansion's going to occur right around the highs of right around the lower high on the quarterly close. Actually, no, it's quite a bit above there. Upper second is 55,800, and just continuing up and to the right, by the way. So this is probably going to be a mega bull run. I don't think it would be short-lived. If anything, if you're looking at the quarterly, we might see a run of the all-time high and then a massive rejection, and then you find it back down at like the upper first at 40K. And this is all stuff that we'll talk about more as time goes on and as we observe price action, and especially where it closes on the volatility of the Bollinger Bands in terms of levels. And then we can come back to it. I mean, that's where, we don't know exactly what will happen, but I would assume that the news events that would occur with a lot of this is, launch of ETFs and stuff like that. So, and then the volatility surrounding that, and maybe, maybe some exchanges go out of business, and then that's where you see it occurring around highs and that kind of stuff. Big, regulatory provisions coming into play, that kind of stuff, and then it would just be upwards and onwards from there, because that's the look that that we're getting from the quarterly. Like maybe massive corrections, but like a pretty long sustainable bull run. As we didn't quite see parabolic tops. I mean, this is a parabola from from the March 2020 lows up. That's a parabola. So, I mean, for those that are like, oh, we didn't get a parabolic blow off top. I mean, no, you had a parabola up and then you had a double pump to a consolidation, which means that the next parabola is probably going to be much bigger. Instead of, $5,000 and $10,000 candles, we could see $10,000 and $15,000 candles, that kind of thing, and maybe more. Who knows? Especially when you have an ETF wrapper for spot Bitcoin on on the major exchanges and tradable around the world. So in regulated in the regulated arena, there's so much money. You only need to capture a small percentage of it to really get Bitcoin to incredibly high prices. So yeah. And this is not everybody was a little premature in looking for some of those crazier targets. And I didn't, you're not going to hear crazy targets out of me. We take it step by step because I'm trading this myself, right? And we have to be aware of the near term price action, especially if you're going to do anything like day trading. Like if you're going to do any kind of day trading, you can stack. I stack and I hold for long periods of time, and I bought all through the bottom, right? Like spot, and that's all long term. But I'm not trading any of that for income. That's long term holds, multi-year positions. I have not actually sold spot Bitcoin since, I want to say I sold some spot Bitcoin in around 2019 when it failed at the close open over here of 2017. I want to say I sold some spot, but it was not a lot. And then I just accumulated all through here, all the way up. And prior to that, it was, and someday I'll get into this, but I've been in the markets for a really long time. But this year, 14, 15 into 16, I'll tell you the story someday. But I mean, that's primarily when I came back into the markets for Bitcoin specifically. But I've been hanging around since 2012, 2013. Yeah, for those that are in the public chats and YouTube, this question is coming from somebody that's fairly new and studying FINRA exams. So they're also not familiar with me, as they are more familiar with Jimmy over there doing running FINRA examinations. So if you ever want to get FINRA examinations, you can go to Arizona and I can hook you up if you're out in the United States, at least with training. Jimmy's a good trainer. Probably one of the best in the industry. And he's a stand-up instructor. So you're not going to find his training online. I'm the online trainer. Yeah. Cool. Right. Any other questions here? Let me go ahead and look in the public chats here real quick. Not much here. We got some conversation. Yes, my voice does suck today. My apologies. I will try to feel better. Thank you. Yeah, Arizona's a bit far out for you, Jedi. You sure you don't want to swim across that big pond? All right, so cool. Let's go ahead and move on to Dixie then, as I falter with my computer. My monitor just turned off, so give me a second. There we go. I don't know what that was about. Oh, look at that. Dixie's having a little bit of trouble holding its shit together here, so to speak. We are seeing, it head down towards some of the areas that we've talked about. Now, we talked about this on Wednesday when it was moving up to the lower first standard deviation. And I had mentioned that, if it did get above there, you still have to be aware of the 104, 104.5 to 104.69. Nice. But, if it's going to maintain trend, it's going to reject the lower first standard deviation and head back down somewhere around the lows to the lower second in this case. So, right back to 103.17 to 103 even. And then I would be looking to, the 103, 10 to the 102.93. If it drops that area, then we look to the lower second, which is coming in at 102.75 to 78. Below there, 102.5, and then 102 even. So, it's doing what we expected. Now, I will say that momentum still headed down below 103.30. And we see that it's still getting expansion on the Bollinger Band, so this move is still continuing to the downside. I would not be looking for this to really start to try to put in a solidified low on the daily. And remember, this is just a daily. We're not talking weekly, monthly, or whatever. On the daily until I see this wick high taken out at 104.21. It can set a 3-candle low, but it's just a consolidation. If we do see it trade back above 104, 104.21, then we're looking for this to make a run back to retest, somewhere around the highs again at 104.5 to 105, where the basis band is starting to come in. We will most likely see the basis band somewhere around this overhead resistance at 104.5 to 104.69. Nice. And come back to it after that. 2 days going to be continued expansion down as well. Still getting into some critical regions here. And how's our 4-day looking? Yeah, so this is a 4-day trend line regression breakdown, which is telling me that it's more than likely going to head towards the, if it closes like this in the next 4-day candle, it's going to head towards this lower second standard deviation at around 102.5. So that would be your bias, my bias at least, that, if we start to see the lows dropped, 102, 103, 102.93 to 103 area, watch it, but it's likely going to minimum go down and tap on that lower second at 102.5 and possibly down through it to 102 even. Weekly is saying the same thing. In fact, if it closes below the basis, like I said last week, bias is towards that lower first standard deviation. Yes, pay attention to support and resistance. It's already broke the major one at 103.57, and then it's down to 102 to 102.5. So it's following through with everything that we've analyzed. Looks good. Let's go ahead and take a look at gold, which I think is headed up. Yep, $2,000. And I had not mentioned this. Did not mention this. What was I talking about with the reversal structure? There was one that had a beautiful reversal. Was this Wednesday? No, this was Thursday, but got a beautiful inverted hammer there right around the upper first. So the criteria there would be trades back above the upper first. It's going to run this close open here at 1998. It has done so. If it can close above there, then the wicks are in play again to this high over here at 2005 to around 2010. 2011 by the upper second. If it can get above there, it's 2010 to 2016 at this overhead resistance, and above there 2016 to around 2020 to 30 area up here. And that weekly's actually at 2034. So it's a sideways consolidation. I'd like to see a pinch on the bands before I saw something like that. Otherwise, I do think it would get pretty harshly rejected at this overhead resistance, but you know, it does kind of look like it could be setting up for just a bit of ranging activity. 1980 is going to be the daily pivot. Looks good to head up from there. 1977 is the weekly, and it's the weekly does have confluence with my theory there that if we don't see a consolidation on the daily, we're likely to see initial rejections in this overhead area, and upper seconds, kind of splitting the difference between 2016 and 2034, coming in there at 2030, 2027 or so. That's likely to move to around 2034. So if we did see the daily head up there, I would, it's getting a little hot to trot in terms of momentum. I would want to see at least a sideways and up grind here, or a little bit of a cool down in volatility. So price just kind of goes sideways and up. We see the lower standard deviations begin to get above some of these support areas, which, to be fair, lower first is above that 1953. I'd want to see the daily lower second above that area though. But the good thing for the bulls in this case is that lower second is above this prior low. So if we did see some sort of a crash in gold, this wick low to the lower second is going to be the zone to look out for, and then come back to it later, but it's likely to bounce in those areas if it didn't bounce sooner. Right now it's looking strong and looking to head and test higher, this prior high over here to around that 2016, which is what I want to see. Maybe get above that upper second. We come back to it around the mid to low $2,000 area. So as it's just now trading around 2K. Good move though. Good move off the lower second. Love to see it. Love to see it. Let's go look at traditional markets, because I did call out some criteria for it making new all-time highs, and we are starting to see some of that come to fruition. The local structure here, we're getting that residual expansion. Actually, it's just continuing expansion on Dixie, on Dow. Dixie's already done. We already did Dixie, Landy. Let's move on to traditional markets. Jeez. All right. The upper second standard deviation is there, 35,900. So we're looking at 36,000 points here. Yeah, I mean, that's in play. And, Dow is still holding that upper first. So this move is ongoing. If we do see that area lost, and specifically 35,000 lost, then we can look for, a much wider pullback somewhere around the basis, maybe a gap fill, maybe down to 34.5. To 34, which would be nuts. That's a big move and likely to get everybody stupidly bearish in traditional markets, but that's not what we're seeing right now. We're just seeing an upwards grind and a possible, oh my God, really? We could see a possible flip of volatility again, and this thing just continue to grind. And here's the other thing, when Dixie moved up for those however many weeks, I kept mentioning that the move's not done. We haven't even seen a single drive of bearish divergence on that particular move. Can you get hidden bear divs? Yes. Does not matter as much as in-trend bearish divergence. And right now, there's no in-trend bearish divergence. And until we see at least one drive, which would be corrective, two drives, which is usually corrective, and a third drive, which is usually going to be around when the daily starts to reverse, 2 to 3 drives. Around 2 to 3 drives of bearish divergence. And that is in trend or regular bearish divergence, not hidden bearish divergence, but in trend. And we're not seeing that. So this is just pointing up to me. That's what price is going to be doing, in my opinion. And that is what we are seeing here. Now, is Stoke overbought? Absolutely. It can stay here for an extended period of time. It can even come down and just oscillate around in the bullish control zone and the overbought zone for extended periods of time. 35,345 is going to be the momentum pivot. And we're looking at it being right on top of price, basically. Just like it was doing with Dixie all those weeks. We just kept checking in on it. The move's just not over yet. 2 days probably saying the same thing. Yeah, I mean, this is looking for continued expansion on the 2 day. This is just kind of getting rolling, man. This is looking like it wants to take out the local highs and head for the all-time high, to be quite honest. As long as it's closed, if it closes today, in the next 29 minutes or so, above 35, 350, which it's about 40 points above that. If it closes above there, that's continued expansion. This is 80 over 61. Bullish divergences all over the place on that move back down. Bears crying and tears all over the place as well. But this is telling you the story. The 2-day is not done yet. This wants to continue to go. We're looking at Dow probably headed towards its all-time high sometime in December, maybe January, maybe some larger pullbacks in between, but it's going to head towards that all-time high if this is going to remain this way. You know, unless it gets rejected in double tops and starts to turn on major time frames like the weekly or monthly, then we can come back to it and say like, okay, this is a double top. This thing's probably going to drop like a rock. But in this case, that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing the move up. So we got to roll with it and be happy about all those bear tears, because the bear tears weren't even the ones that were shorting the market, which some did. It's more so those macro TA analysts who are, well, dumb as a box of rocks. And it's not even the TA. If they even knew TA, they'd know not to do what they were doing, but more the macro fundamental analysts that were screaming at everybody to get the hell out of markets, trying to put their, well, Belfort's short here, and you can see he's seeing the same things that we're seeing, so it validates what we're seeing. Like, shut up, he's going to get wrecked. And, well, he got wrecked. Anyway, and now I will say he did catch a good portion of that correction, but some of the targets that he was looking for were silly. All right, so done making fun of the most famous trader of all time. Oh, that sounded sharp. Trader, as in Trader, not traitor. Then again, there's probably some people that would think he is, at least in the company man sense. 36K is the upper second on the weekly. This is going to expand. Closures above the upper first here on the weekly absolutely are going to bring the highs into play and higher. We're just getting expansion as well, still continuing to the upside here. We got the little dip in volatility, but never a curl over in the moving average, which meant that because we didn't see that curl over in the moving average, that we were likely to run lower second to upper second. And that's what we're looking at right now. And if it makes a higher high, this was a washout. And looking very good. Let's just get a preview of the monthly here on Dow real quick. Up above 35. So you want to see monthly closures above 35. That'll pull in the 36.3 area at the upper second, which is right around the closing all-time high. So everything is coming in to confluent areas. Let's go ahead and look at NASDAQ. Well, NASDAQ, on the other hand, is looking to paint either a consolidation or a high based on candle structure here, coming into a Friday close. It's likely to close open at around the upper first when this does open back up on Monday. But as long as it's above 15,900 or so, then I'm looking for it to, basically consolidate and then get continuation. If it does drop that area, then we got to pay attention to the high side of the close opens here, and that's around 15.8. If that's dropped, we look down to 15.7 to around it's 15.726, somewhere around the 15.7 area. If that is dropped, then we're looking significantly lower, back to 15.5, and that's likely where the basis band on the daily is going to come in. If it does get continuation, take out the wick high at some point next week at 120, then I would be looking for destination to be somewhere around 16.5 over time during the week. Weekly is the upper second standard deviation, initial rejections here, no issue. Now, if this was expansion, and we were seeing the end of a move, then I'd be looking for a rejection here that was sustainable. In this case, initial rejections at the upper second are not what you would consider a sustainable rejection unless you see the upper first dropped and then head back to the basis. Then that would be a legitimate rejection, legitimate high. But we're looking at higher highs on this weekly move with the destination likely being the all-time high. as long as we see it above the upper first standard deviation on the weekly, and that's at 15,612 right now. So really anywhere above this prior high on a close, which was a lower high. So we had our downtrend and then our trend break. We still want to see higher lows. So, even if it did come back in higher low, that's fine. Would want to see it somewhere around the basis or this third lower high down here, which would be 15,000. So below there, it's dangerous for bullish momentum across the board, even on higher term time frames. In this case, we want to see this go further and then come back and retest, quite honestly. So I would be looking for continuation. We got 30 over 16 on expansion. This is going to continue to expand. If we do see it close, end of today above 15,982, almost 16K, where it's currently trading, $16,063. So it's got to trade up a little bit to close above there. Otherwise, I think it just kind of grinds up, and then maybe we see some more volatile closes above later after some shorter term corrections. Now, if we do at some point see that upper first standard deviation dropped somewhere around 15,600 to 15,500, that's where, we still on higher low watch because we have a trend break. So the first thing you look for is not lower lows, but higher lows. And we'd be hunting for that based on the lower term timeframes below the daily, and then come back to it later. And the weekly is pointed up still on any closes above 14,400. So there's still a 1,000-point gap there. But this is what you should be paying attention to, is this is liftoff on expansion on the weekly. This means that it's likely going to remain biased to the upside. We have agreement between Stoke, Bollinger Bands, and momentum, along with price structure. Now, we still need to see a weekly higher low to build an uptrending structure. This is simply a downtrend break right now, so expect higher lows at minimum, at worst, lower lows. And in this case, this is looking like it wants to get some further continuation to the upside. And then, along the way, we look for those higher lows. And only really if we see like 14.5, dropped, which is quite a ways away from price action right now. But that doesn't mean it can't quickly get there. Then we look for, continuation to the downside. In this case, it's looking like bears are screwed. At least for now. And yes, the monthly agrees. Getting upwards expansion on the Bollinger Bands, a little bit of downwards expansion. This is a big range that this is building. So just be aware that, let's say it drops it on the monthly. We see a high put in here on the monthly. This is still nothing but a big range, which means that there's a lot of opportunity to make a ton of freaking money, because on the monthly time frame, it's a double top, it's going to go down. Okay. Well, we're only seeing slight expansion, and we just see bigger and bigger choppiness sideways, which is just, that's the money making pattern right there, man. So, and yes, you can make money in sustained up moves, like the up moves that all these macro experts have been telling you. Oh yeah, it's sell, sell, sell. Higher low on the monthly, really? Like, we were only just coming back to possibly put in, like, this thing could have dropped to 13,300 and it's still bullish. But yet they're like, sell it all, get out. See, we were right about everything. The macroeconomic outlook sucks. Like, no, that just means that everybody that's a normal person is going to get killed while the markets keep doing what they're doing. That's all the macroeconomic numbers mean. That means that if you're a little guy, you're getting murdered with prices. You're getting murdered with supply and demand shock in certain areas. So you've got like inflated prices across the board. And in most cases, those numbers that are coming out officially are not accurate. And then we already saw inflation tick back up. So, and that's, a lot of that spelled out in the inverted yield curve, or the reinversion of the yield curve, which everybody was making a big deal about the yield curve uninverting. And quite honestly, I didn't care, and I told you guys here that that's not going to be sustainable. We looked at momentum. It was not going to be, we were topping out in many areas, and while that was happening, the short end of the curve was bullishly resetting. So anyway, SPY's the next area. Oh, man, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Post market's already in play here. Oh, man. Oh, that's right. Today was an early day. Wait, yeah? Interesting. Was it an early day over there? Oh, yeah, that would make sense why you guys were leaving. And I had told you early in the stream to come over. Okay. Yep. Okay. Anyway, that's me just being stupid. All right. In this case, we saw a breakout on the daily and close above that 453. Next destination is going to be 460. It can still get there and higher to the upper second as long as it's closing above that upper first. I do suspect the upper first is going to be right around price action here at 453 to 455, where it closed on SPY. But as long as it's above there, I would be looking to the upper second standard deviation at 460 to 465. It doesn't mean that we're not going to see a pullback. If we do see a pullback below 450, keep an eye on the gap area at 446 to around 440. That's kind of where you'd want to see things stop. And that's likely to be around the basis band on the daily here. Now, of course, momentum is hot to trot here, 455. It's going to be right on top of price action. We do see a bit of volatility cool down, but we're not seeing that reflected in the bands. What we're seeing is an upwards expansion with the lower standard deviations chasing as price has slowed down in its move up. It's just kind of sideways and up here. So the basis band is beginning to catch up. You want to see it in that gap and then above that gap. Otherwise, price still has the ability to continue to move down towards this gap. I mean, price has the ability to do whatever it wants, but in this case, it's more likely to fill that gap if it starts to lose that upper first standard deviation around 450 to 452. Now, of course, it would have to break down below the low at 448, but the gap's kind of right there at 446. So that's kind of the big area, 440 to 446 is where I'd be looking. Otherwise, it's continuation of 460 to 465, and then probably all-time high trek from there around 470, 475, 480, 490, and then 500 points. And I would take it 5 points at a time when looking at SPY. When looking at the weekly here, this is a beautiful sight to behold. We see volatility increasing. We see a closure above the upper first standard deviation at 451, thus bringing it into play. Guess what? 460 to 465 by the upper second standard deviation and higher, because this will open and tick up. It's currently at 463.67. That's where it closed. It's going to open and gap up a little bit there because it's not. It doesn't have the updated close until we see the Monday open. So. Very good. Looks great. Love it. Love to see it. I especially love that all these macro experts are just getting their poo pushed in, so to speak, by the entirety of people on the internet who actually know how to do TA and understand how auctions work. That's what TA is. I'm going to repeat this every single time until this gets drilled into some people's heads. When you're doing TA, all you're doing is you are observing and making price, not price predictions. You're making logical areas of interest. You're pointing out logical areas of interest. You're not predicting price. For those that come through and they you can call it price prediction, but all you're doing is you're observing the auction in real time and or after close. And you are identifying areas of interest to the upside and downside, and then you create conditions based upon those areas of interest. If it gets past this area, it will go to this area, i.e., if it, breaks through upside resistance, this is the next area of resistance that you are looking for. If it breaks through downside supports, this is the next area of interest, and that's the conditional aspect of it. And that's the way that auctions work. Okay, so the people who are macroeconomists are the real all these macroeconomic guys. They're really running behind the ball here all the time because they get latent numbers. They're not observing the actual live auctions, and they're all news driven. Where is the news actually generated? The news is generated at auction. The auction is very seldom a response to news. Like even the Black Swan event of 2020 was already baked in. You could see it coming with the weekly downtrend. And the downtrend was accelerating in terms of its volatility to the downside. So anybody that says, including people who do TA that I love and will recommend that you guys follow and watch and so on and so forth, have called that a black swan, and it was not a damn black swan. You could see the damn weekly downtrend on Bitcoin and everything else headed into that March dump off. That was just a final stab down and an increasing volatile environment on the weekly anyway, after failed highs put in at highs. So anyway, that's going to do it for the analysis portion of today's video. I will peruse the chats here with the degen chart on for those degenerates who love this 30-second chart. Dirty damn degenerates. All right, let's go over here. Yes, I know MDX Crypto's doing a 24-hour stream. Yeah, I was tuned into it for a little while. Love that guy. I'm glad to see that he's doing well. He's always been doing well financially, but for those of you that know Mr. MDX Crypto, you know some of the things that he's had some issues with over the years, and I'm glad to see that he's doing well, looks healthy. And he's a good dude. He's a very good dude. So, yes, and Eric Crown launched his thing. Yep. Yeah, he's got some kind of NFT indicator series. Yeah. I think it's aimed at, it's aimed at bigger traders, professionals who want to automate things and stuff like that. I think they're trying to get ahead because he's still got ins in the industry. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yep. No, I haven't looked into any of it though. I know that he's just announced, I think yesterday I saw a post on Twitter where he was announcing his NFT thing. So, yeah, the other guy, I don't really know that other guy as much. I think he goes Crypto Zombie, I think is his name. I don't really know a lot about him. I've seen him. I've seen his stuff before. I'll be honest, I was not like enamored with his analysis, but it's just he's playing to an audience that's very different. He's playing to the masses. He's not playing to hardcore analysts who actually, either do it professionally or have been doing this for a very long time and know their shit. He's playing, the infotainment game. You can tell he knows what he's talking about, though. Let me go ahead and look in the public chats here. I know some of you guys have already left and come over to those, so if you want to chat in there, go ahead and do so. Let's take a look here. Total 3. I can look at total 3. Let me go ahead and turn on some of the background music here so that it can cover for the long pauses and or some of my coughing, which I apologize for. Blowing out your eardrums with coughs here. Let's go ahead and get some music in the background so I can read through this. Yeah, I'll look at, you want total 3. Okay, I can look at total 3. I might as well just look at total 2 and total 3. But Litecoin, yeah, we can look back at Litecoin. Litecoin's been performing pretty damn well. Considering, it pumped early, right? So let's go ahead and look at total 2 and 3. We'll just do all 3 of them. Preferably not on the 30-second chart, though. All right, so let's go ahead and total market cap, looks good on the daily. We do have a breakout above that 1.28 to 1.3 trillion. The next big daily area is 1.5 trillion. It's got a little bit more to go to get there. Now the daily curled back up It's good above 1.38 trillion. So basically above 1.4 where it's trading now. It's looking to head up, possibly break the wick highs here. If not, it's just going to go sideways. As long as it's above like 1.3 to 1.25. Yeah, it's 1.3 is the wick low over here. As long as it's above there, it's looking good. I do want to see the weekly real quick. Yeah, this looks like this looks like it wants to go. You know, it's reclaimed, totals reclaimed the lows over here. The next lows at, you know, over 1.5 trillion, which is a daily pit stop then. And when looking at the weekly, we're looking at 1.65 trillion. Could it come back and retest 1.28 to 1.3 at the upper first on the weekly? Absolutely. Weekly is good above 1.21, so it looks good. I like total getting expansion, total market cap. Primarily going to be Bitcoin dominated. Total 2 is also headed up, looking to close above that 661 billion on the weekly. We'll just look at weeklies here. Who cares about the daily right now? You're going to see some ebb and flow here. 555, so 555 billion looking good. We can check on the daily. Let's just check on the daily. Don't be lazy. This is about ready to turn back up on total 2. So alts are going to do well as well here. 661 trading at 663. Now that could change, but just like total market cap, it's looking to test the highs and higher. We do have a compression. So this compression, you know, things could go sideways. Just check that upper second for re-expansion. That's at 680 billion. And then lower second would be a breakdown from 615. You don't want to see that. So if you do see that, then it's going to be heading, you know, quite a bit lower to probably the upper 500 billion area to mid 500 billion. But at the moment, you know, this is compressing and likely to result in an upside move as we see that lower second is coming into a support zone. When looking at total 3, this is a big move up on total 3. So we might see some of these. Did get a breakout retest, and it's hanging on to it so far. You know, could head to 453 on the daily. It's looking like it wants to cool down a little bit more. Yeah, 418 bill. Yeah, 418 bill is kind of B. Yeah, it does look like it kind of wants to go sideways for a little bit and reaccumulate. Okay, but if it does start to crack back above 425 billion, boom, this thing's going to take off. It's going to take its highs at 432 and then head for some of those deeper areas. So, you know, we're looking somewhere around 454 to 450 area and above. If it does take out the lows here at 387 and specifically that lower second, then we're looking for like a pretty big retrace back to around 368. And so far it looks good, and it's likely to result in it turning back to the upside in terms of momentum as well. Yeah, this is a back test of the upper second on expansion on the weekly. Looks good. It's not quite the breakout. It's not quite a breakout yet. 440 to, again, that high there at 454. But you can see that the daily's got potential just to consolidate and then turn that way. It's just keep track of that upper second and lower second as long as it's above support. Could even tag support and then head back up. Takes out 432. It's good. Upper second is at 411. Ooh, man. This is looking pretty good. 360 is the momentum pivot on the weekly, yeah. And you can see that, you know, we're just now getting lift off of BBWP. So, and from the weekly, just so you know, this could come down for a retest of this most recent high. It's testing this high and it's closing above this high, but it can still come down for a retest at like 354 or on the basis. I wouldn't want to see that, but it'd still be bullish. And above 380, this thing is going to continue to head up. So, looks good. Let's go ahead and look at Litecoin. Did I not mark up any of these charts? Yeah, Litecoin, you know, big move up, early mover, still consolidating. I would actually like to see this get a nice tight compression. And on the weekly, I want to see this get a nice tight compression, and we're probably going to see that. So closing below the basis band on the weekly at 72.25. Going to see this compress even further and continue to head down. Lower first, right around the skating just above the lows here at 61. So as long as it's holding this last wick low at around 59 to 60, it's looking fine. If it does start to drop that area, I'd be looking for it to catch that lower second, somewhere around 50 to 55 bucks at this low. Above, the rejected area right here on the weekly at 76.73, which it pinned perfectly. We haven't looked at this chart together in a while. I do use this chart though to trade. If it does get above there, then we're looking to the upper first, somewhere around 80 to 82 bucks. And then above there, the upper second around 85 to 90 bucks. 90 bucks being this close open right here. You want to see it close above and then get specifically above 100 to 101 and run these highs up here to actually have a chance to go for that 115 to 120 high up there. Weekly says pressure up above 60 bucks. So it is going to start to catch up to price action though. So you do want to see this starting to double bottom and get the hell out of there. Daily saying yes. Lower second tap, reversal, close back above the upper first. So the first part of this move has already occurred on the daily. For what I would advise, you look for that lower second tap, regain the lower first, and then head to the basis. So the next part of this would be take that basis and head back to the overhead resistance 75 to 76.73 up there where it rejected, literally railroad pinned it. So back above 71.62, step by step, you'd go probably around, take this wick high at 72.69, really nice. Anyway, to the upper first around 73.89, and then above there, the upper second, run the highs. I would take it, one step at a time, 75.25, which is the around the basis on the right. I think that was the basis of the weekly. We can go double check, but upper second at 76.15 to 76.73. Take those highs and then start to mark it up. Then it's a big markup area. You still take the daily support and resistance 80 to 85 bucks, so on and so forth. What we just talked about on the weekly. So, and the daily supports this, this move. In terms of pressure to the upside. So, the low being set, if they can get above the basis, then it's looking really good. But closes above 68.63, going to complete this cross to the upside. Actually, it is complete. So it looks good. Looks good to test higher. If it does reject here, though, just, I'd watch the lower first. Somewhere around 69.36 to the lower second at 67. Below there, it's going to run the lows. The current wick low at 65.26 or so to around 63.25. Below there, it's running the lows again at 60 bucks to 55 bucks. Hope that helps. I said music's too loud. You couldn't hear me? Were you guys able to hear the total market cap and the Litecoin? Or no? I know my voice isn't doing great, but well, Cheryl says thanks, so she must have heard me. Yeah, Bobby, around 450 to 454 or so. Don? Hi, Don. Where did Don request? It's down here. I see Cheryl spin. Oh, bye, spin. Take care, buddy. Don wants, I don't see him here. Where is he? There he is. Hi, perfect moment. Coin. Yeah, I can look at Coinbase. Perfect. Perfect question, actually, because Coinbase has been kind of leading the way in terms of bias here. And if it closes above 112, it's going, we're looking like 120, 130 range. It's quite a move. Expansion is getting more intense as well. Yeah, it's just got to take out the highs at 116. This takes out the highs at 116. Next big destination is going to be around that 132. It's getting continued expansion. Sorry about the coughing. 113.71 is the momentum pivot, and it did, it's closing around 115.55 post market. It's trading at rather where the close come in. 115.40. So, it's only got a little bit of to go. We see re-expansion of, and this is confirmed re-expansion on BBWP. This is pressure up. It's at minimum going to run this high at 116. And this wick high over here, and then the next area is going to be 132. Above there, we're looking to the weekly. Weekly is still upside angled above $75. Yeah, this is a pinch. This is a pinch on the Bollinger Bands to re-expansion. This is beautiful, and this is confirmed re-expansion on the weekly. This is going to go much further. Next big area above 132 is going to be 160 to 162, and then the highs here are somewhere around 200 to 210. Maybe even 215 before, if it starts to really break out and crack through these areas, we might not even see a pullback until some of these bigger areas. Maybe pullbacks in lower term time frames, but looks good. Now back below the basis. Still fine even to the lower first at this point at $72, but you don't want to see it there. You want to see this move continue. You don't want to see rejection here. Otherwise, it's going to lead to longer form consolidation. Then we're waiting probably until first quarter of next year to see some resolution. But in this case, it's looking good. Not there yet. Got to see it close above 116 on a daily, and then subsequently a weekly, and then we're looking much deeper targets, 130, 160. Pit stops along the way, but probably eventually 200 to 215 again. And then if it gets above there, it's running its opens back here in the 300, 360, 400, 500, so on and so forth. Yeah, looks good. Just need to see it remain above its pivot on the weekly at $75. So it's got room on the daily to do all kinds of nuking, and it's a little hot to trot in terms of like momentum, but volatility is saying no, I want to keep going. Now if it stops here, like I said, if it stops here in this resistance zone somewhere around 116 to 132, or 112 to 132 I should say, is where my overhead resistance zone is here, then we gotta watch that downside, but I would still be looking for a bullish reset. If it gets rejected, you're probably seeing, consolidation in markets as it consolidates. If it takes off, we're probably looking at, it's going to be moving with Bitcoin, more likely correlated with Bitcoin. I suspect, if you look across the board at like miners and let's say like MicroStrategy, it's all doing the same thing. Right up against resistance at this prior high from back. It's the same area from March of 2022, so they're front running where the breakdown happened on the lower highs. But so they're ahead of Bitcoin basically. But 520, gets above there. We're looking at 575 on MicroStrategy, and then it's got a little bit more history, but it's headed to 600, 700 area. From the weekly perspective, this is expansion, confirmed expansion above 351. It's looking very, very good, and it's going to continue to get expansion at least for the next couple weeks here. And particularly if it breaks out of this area, just to give you an idea of where we are. Here's 2021. Here's this is way back in the 2000s. So you're not looking at all-time highs, but you're looking at the local highs here. And of course, we've got the double pump where MicroStrategy made a lower high, not a higher high. But the nice race up with Bitcoin on the first pump up into 21, come back down, reaccumulate. Even got an inverted head and shoulders that got rejected at the neckline, and then boom, down. It just it literally moved its way down and then bottomed in May, and then retest in December of 2022, right around where Bitcoin put in its lower low at 15.5. So this is looking to make its run already, and could be front running all the ETF stuff, get into an in-kind asset or indice rather, to capture some of that move up. But if it reclaims 575, we're looking over time 850, 860, and then the highs somewhere around 1,000 to the wick there at 1,300. So coin, MicroStrategy, you can look across the board. I mean, Riot and like all the rest are going to be looking really good too, at least from the weekly perspective. If you look at the monthly, well actually the monthly is doing something very interesting. First closure above the upper second standard deviation, boom, up. Now this was not a new all-time high, right? This was not a new all-time high because it had overhead resistance from many years ago. That's basically what I've been talking about with Bitcoin. It's like every time it closes above the upper second standard deviation on the monthly, it makes a new all-time high, but there wasn't direct overhead resistance in prior cycles. So for Bitcoin, you just need to see it one more specific criteria, take out the 48 500 wick high, and then it's going to expand to the all-time high and likely make a new all-time high. And in this case, this wouldn't be an all-time high on MicroStrategy, but it would be looking like it's going to run those same areas where Bitcoin was putting its all-time high. So it looks good. This is monthly expansion. Yes, it's in the slightly peeking its head into the over bought zone, but that doesn't mean shit. 430 is a momentum pivot. If it begins expansion here, very likely this is headed for pay dirt. Upper first standard deviation on the quarterly even is at 507. So coming into the end of the year, look at that quarterly. Oh my God. Oh, Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor is going to be the richest man on the planet. Holy shit. 231 is the quarterly pivot on MicroStrategy. Wow. Holy shit. There is no second best, huh? Holy shit. Wow. Just so you know, this is a big deal. For reference, it's starting to paint the same thing that it painted in April of 2019. April of 2019? Wait, that's right around where Bitcoin topped out. Yeah, and it was all opportunity from there, wasn't it? Wow. Jeez. Now, look, we have really expanded Bollinger Bands, so that momentum pivot is freaking nice. It's looking like it wants to run the upper side. Let's pull back. Let's pull back. Okay. It's looking like it wants to run the upper second, which is at $700. If it can close the end of the year above 507. Now, volatility is very high. So that is the counterpoint to this. Because unless it's going to max out volatility, it's likely headed for like $1,300 a share at its highs. Other than that, we would have to come back and check on it. It's very difficult for me to see this kind of expansion of Bollinger Bands to then turn around and say like, oh, it's going to race past, its prior high of 1,300. Because we have not quite seen a compression. Now, unless this just legs up, legs up, legs up, legs up, and just continues, and volatility just goes flat and sideways as like the basis just ticks up quarter over quarter with it, sure. But I would exercise caution, but I'm telling you that momentum pivot on the quarterly is looking freaking good. I imagine the 6 month is still pointing down though, so that's kind of the counterpoint to this. I'd want to see higher level consolidation. Monthly is getting a little hot, so it's likely that if it ran these highs in the 700 to 1300, yes, it's a big range, but if it ran up into these highs, it's likely going to see some pretty harsh volatile rejections, and then we need to see longer form consolidation and then move on. And that's likely where you start seeing this stock being dropped for spot ETF, right? People rolling out of this and rolling a portion of their MicroStrategy holdings into a spot ETF, and that's likely what the narrative would be around that point. This is important, by the way, because you can predict what the narratives are going to be. You're not going to be right. You might get close, but you can see it on the chart, like especially knowing that it's inevitable that we will see an ETF launched, a spot ETF. So it's not about if, it's about when, and maybe MicroStrategy is giving it away a little bit here, giving us an early impulse breakout structure if it can get above 575. I mean, it's kind of already there. It's already higher low structure on the weekly after a double bottom on the monthly and a higher low structure on the monthly as well. So I mean, it looks like Bitcoin, obviously, and there's no second best. There just isn't. So yeah, looks good. Wow. Quarterly, man. This monthly could reset. If I could burn that quarterly down, man, it's got room too. It could even mean revert on the quarterly and then just set up a real tight squeeze, and then on the quarterly just blast off to space. That would be insane. But like in 2019 into 2020, I mentioned to people like, you probably should be looking into Sailor stuff. Like he was not a Bitcoin guy, you may remember. And then when he went all in, he's smart. He recognized what was happening and just went for it. Like literally went for it. Of course, that was where you get the accusations of he's, just trying to save the company because the software sells and all this other stuff. Is just not doing it anymore. And like, this is his last ditch effort. He's a madman. Well, he's a madman, all right. And he saved his company. And he's helped the world become more aware of the power of Bitcoin. And he's starting to understand that it's much more than money. He's adopted the Jason Lowry talking points because I think he finally understands it. And by the way, those talking points are not new, but very well presented by Mr. Lowry, who subsequently was disappeared. He didn't really disappear. But. Cool. Anyway, we'll go back to DGen chart. Anybody have any other questions and or want to draw my attention to something? Let me know. If not, we're probably going to log off here. And football this weekend, man. There's football all week. Got Monday, Thursday football, 3 games. We got Friday football, and then we got Monday football. It's just NFL football everywhere, huh? Love it. I love being distracted by the puppet masters with the games, our version of gladiator games, while we all secretly plan to buy more Bitcoin and subvert the system. They think they got us, right? Watch our footy, watch our football, not FUTBOL, but football, where they throw the ball with their hand and every once in a while kick it. From my overseas friends there. How do I see dot? I usually look at them, and sometimes if I close my eyes and squeeze them really hard, I can see dots. That's usually not good, though. I should probably go to the doctor. But in terms of the cryptocurrency, let's go ahead and take a look. That's not what I want. Oh, that's a 30-second chart. So, all right, let's take a look. Dot is consolidating. Nice bounce off the lower first. Back above 557. It's running the highs again up here around $6. I don't know anything about that, buddy. So Don's asking if maybe if I have any background on it in terms of the fundamentals. I don't know much about the fundamentals. I know that there's coins that I use that I like Litecoin, because it's useful to me, not because I think that it's like, maybe at some point it'll make a new all-time high, but I can play the moves on it very easily. It's very technical, and kind of go from there. But in this case, 550, this is looking good, and it's threatening to put in a low. Back above this open at 531, and specifically back above the upper first around 546, then we can look for this wick high at 557 above there. It's going to probably run to $6 and beyond. Get a nice little daily reset. For right now, it's just consolidation. Nice little break up from this downtrending structure, but it's just a downtrend break right now. It isn't a daily downtrend. It does have a break on the weekly. Need to see higher lows. This isn't particularly strong right now, though. 390 is, it's got room on the weekly. It's a mean regression break as well, but we can already see that with the downtrend break. We need to see higher lows. So either, stay above this last low at 483, or it's going to, head down to somewhere between 465 and, $4. If it gets below $4, excuse me. If it gets below $4, then it's right back to the lows at 350 plus a momentum turn to the downside, and then this thing's probably nuked for a while. So far, it's trying. As long as it can stay in the strong half of the bands here, to the lower first, at least above $4. Now that weekly is going to catch up though soon. You might just want to see it above that basis band at 464 to remain with opportunity to the upside. But yeah, maybe there is a narrative going on with this project, but I wouldn't know what it is. Oh god, energy web tokens back. Freaking degens. On KuCoin. This is a downtrend. It held the low that I had from last time. So it held that wick low. I mean, it swung it. It regained this low. And as long as it's above the close open here, it's probably headed up. God, what a piece of garbage this thing is. Yeah, it's got to remain above 235 or else it's just going to keep going down forever. This thing doesn't even have a trend break yet. So on a closing trend break, it's got to get above 282, which it's, to be fair, it's testing around. But that wick high is going to probably hold things down. I would, in fact, below 304, this prior low on a close. You got kind of a double bottom structure here, so you can take either one of these closes, but below $3, this thing is just in the gutter. Gets more interesting to go and test this wick high at around 346. If it can get above $3, get expansion above that upper second standard deviation on the weekly. It's looking like it's got a chance above 166, so it's got some time and it's got some room. It's looking to maintain expansion and run that upper second, so that's what it's looking for this week. It's looking for this, $2.82 to $3 region this week. But it's got to at least put in, if it pulls back, it's got to put in a higher low, and it's got to remain above 210. If it doesn't remain above 210, it's running the lows and probably lower down to the lower second again at 155. But yeah, is not even interested in this thing doing much of anything. Quite honestly, below $6.85. I mean, that gets it above. That's a reclaim of these lows. That's a reclaim of the breakdown higher low. So, I'm sorry, lower high. So you have the lower high to breakdown of the lows. You get above there, and then things get really interesting. This thing could go on probably, a big run, 14, 15, 16, $20, whatever. Right now, this thing is just down forever. And it's got to start somewhere. Does it start here? Maybe. Maybe. As long as it's above 210, it's got a chance. Below 210, I think that, it's likely that this thing is just going to continue to make lower highs. And maybe find a low somewhere around that 1.5 region. So far, it's looking okay. What does a monthly look like? Fucking hell, this thing's garbage. It's barely above the monthly. 215, man. What's a 5-day look like? Yeah, above $2. It's gonna try. I just keep an eye on it. Other than that, it's complete garbage. It's a terrible chart. Is it a tradable chart? Yeah, you're just mostly sitting in shorts, though. And you better hope that there's exit liquidity on the other side. Do I know the channel for Crypto Chico? Chico Crypto? Talking about, hey guys. And he's always outside with palm trees behind him. I gave you this coin and that coin, and I gave you the lowdown on what was going on with Binance and CZ. That guy? Chico Crypto? I'm familiar with him. Tyler S? Yep. I know who Tyler S is. And now he's just constantly video blogging from a golf cart. He's given up on the charts. It's up only, apparently. I'm going to go get on my golf cart and talk to you guys. I mean, it's doing well for him. I mean, people who aren't into charts just want to hear, the opinion from people who they've deemed understand the charts. And Tyler knows his shit, but he's, biased. He's directional bias, either to the upside or downside with, whatever the mood is. And, but in general, I mean, he was, as far as I know, telling his audience where he was accumulating, which was on the lows. So, can't hate on a guy that's being honest. And you're going to get things wrong. Look, we've been very fortunate to get things as right as we have for, going on two and a half years. For those of you that were around when this was a private channel, and, just me and my friends basically chatting with each other. But, it's not anything special. We're not doing anything special. And unfortunately, for many of the people who do not have experience in traditional market and finance and stuff like that, or background in it, a lot of them are taking shots in the dark, and we have a pretty perfected system here. It's not me and my intuition. It's just reading what is right in front of us. The altcoins that are hot and upcoming are usually going to be, you're going to hear the buildup from all of the different people in the space, right? The problem is the music, they get killed, huh? Oh, someone killed my music. Here we go. It didn't loop like it was supposed to. Well, let's put it this way. 99.9% of the projects are paying creators and influencers to get the word out. It's not inherently bad, to pay for marketing, but when you're paying for marketing in terms of the coin itself, it's just the volatility of when they tell you to buy and when they dump their shit on you is pretty nasty. And you're going to find out over time, most likely, that every single one of those bigger creators is in on that. Whether or not you like them or not, or whether or not they've been dumping to the max or not, or, they got to get paid somehow. and trust me, YouTube doesn't pay shit. Especially for the YouTube guys. And for a long time, Twitter didn't pay shit. So back when I had a very big Twitter following, before getting banned, you did have some manner of rev share from Twitter, but it was not what a lot of people. It's not what it is now. So most of your money was made off of shilling, exchanges or coins or any of that kind of shit. Something I didn't engage in. I built my audience based off signals, and it was very different than what I do now, and it was much more catered towards like look at me kind of influencer bullshit, but also I was very, very, very political, which is why I got banned. It was for the politics as it related, but it was always in relation to money and in particular Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So I had a pretty decent following. We'll put it that way, without kind of outing some of the people that you might have seen missing if you were around, 2017, 2018, when I started building that profile around 15, 16. And it really blew up in 17 into 18, especially when I was calling for the bear market, particularly during the compression to new lower lows, which a lot of people didn't believe was going to happen, but there was a few. Crown was still building his channel. He didn't really have a presence on Twitter. He was building his YouTube, or The Cave, and there was a lot of guys, up and coming. You had your Moon Carls, you had your Cryptos, you had your Bit Boys and all that kind of shit. Really just starting to like take off. And yeah, it was very different. You couldn't make a lot of money, but one thing that I didn't do is I didn't shill coins. I'd give you my honest take on it, but I did one of the reasons why I don't partner with exchanges right now is I did have deals with exchanges. And what happens with exchanges, you get a portion of maker and taker fees, or you get a portion of order flow. So you had your Bitfinex, you had your Mt. Goxes, you had your up and coming smaller exchanges like Binance. Please, it's going to the moon? Why not? Everything's gonna moon. We're all gonna live on the moon someday. I'm headed there next week. Or I'll just fake it and say I'm on the moon. Provide some doctored up video. Yeah. Moon landing. Meanwhile, it is very hard to get to the moon from this flat disk that we're on. Maybe if everybody jumps on the other side of our flat Earth, we'll all get catapulted up. Right? So if we're in the west, you got to get everybody in the east just to jump really high and come down really hard. And then we can all fly up to the moon, which is made of cheese, as it turns out. Yes, we're devolving into nonsense now. With like kind of the perfect song for it. With that faux saxophone going on in the background there for a little bit. I mean, we can just talk about elections. You want to talk about elections? We could start doing that. Can you use Bitcoin on the cheese moon? Absolutely. I mean, if you can use dog coins on Mars, why can't you use Bitcoin on the moon? I mean, if we go to the other side of the moon, the dark side of the moon, that's where the aliens live. That's where the Galactic Federation hides their ships. And they take Bitcoin, as it turns out. And Space Force has been in contact with the Galactic Federation for many, many years now. And you know, they've got their bases on the dark side of the moon. And they came down and they talked to Trump in the prior administration. And they told him about Nassar and Jassara. And how, you know, it's really, they take Bitcoin, but, you know, we need XRP, and it's going to go to like $2,000 a coin pretty soon. I heard it from this guy online. How is Lunk still? Because people are degenerates. How is Lunk still going up in terms of market cap? Yeah. Just so you know, Cheryl, I can go deep down the rabbit hole. I know every single thing about this kind of weird esoteric shit that you could possibly think of. We could have crazy conversations that will get this YouTube channel banned. Yeah, it's still got quite a market cap on it. Yeah, no, sure. We should talk elections. That should be like just Bitcoin and then elections. That's it. It's going to be the way to go. And then we can talk policy. Like we could go from like there to then we can start talking about like the Middle East and the dynamics between, you know, Zionist and non-Zionist people, and then the actual people who are Islamic and the Islamic State, and like we could talk about all that kind of crazy stuff. We could totally get into it. And then we could talk about how, like, you know, all the big bankers and how they all fit into the picture on both sides. the banking families specifically. We could talk about how that bleeds down into what they call the Middle East, but it's really North Africa. We could talk about how, we could go so deep that you would think that maybe I had training in some kind of lodge, but I didn't. Can't talk about what's going on there anyway. I mean, this is public. I just mentioned it. I might actually get a knock on the door. You don't have to be a member to get a knock on the door. If the knock turns into pounding, you better run. It's okay. I mean, when we actually do get video here, you'll see that I blink sideways. Oh man, the guys over at the shop are freaking rolling over there. I can hear you guys. Yeah, you have your microphones on. Never say put a knife between the ribs. Yeah, there was some, I don't know when that was, but there was some really wonky shit that you get banned for on Twitter. Like I always had fun like trolling people of all political biases. That was always fun. Like I do know that some people that follow which I'm a nobody online anymore. Like a little over 500 here on YouTube and like I don't know, like a little over 300 on X or Twitter now, whatever it is, right? Barely have anybody, but man, I mentioned that the Argentina elections, right? The Argentina elections, man, got a few messages privately about that. Like, are you one of them people? And I'm like, look, you can be objective about what you're looking for. And the reason why I'm interested in that election is because of his take on Bitcoin and the central banking system. And if you can't figure out what my biases might be if I don't like a central banking system, then maybe you're not cut out for these markets either. Because if you're involved in these kind of markets where you're looking for new money, then you understand that there's problems and you understand that you need to evaluate what's going on with some of the people in the space that are also on that same side. Doesn't mean you're going to agree with them on everything. Doesn't mean that you're going to like all their policies, but you should at least understand what they are. And that is, I'm excited to see what he does. And it's not like, to be quite honest, like, what is he going to do? Make things worse there? It's freaking hellhole, man. Like, I've got family down in South America, and I've got friends that live down there, and specifically in Argentina, and they can tell you they're happy about that election. And I didn't know a lot. They had to inform me, what the media and even the people who like that guy kind of give you, like, the ideas about what he's presenting as his policy positions. They're a bit hyperbolic, right? And the United States media and the foreign press, like even the European media, is very, very much like they want to paint that guy and subsequently, and to be fair, I mean the Dutch elections a little bit different because that is historically a very right-leaning stance that he's taken. So I mean, but who do they want to compare it to here in the United States? It's everything's Trump, because that's been their big boogeyman for so long, and the international media, not just the United States media, and that's begun to fall on deaf ears here in the United States, increasingly so over the past few years. Take a few years of Joe Biden presidency, and then all of a sudden you've got Democrats like Rappaport talking about possibly voting for Trump, which is crazy. Like and even bringing these things up, everybody goes, oh, well, this guy must be a crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist. Or if I, agree with somebody on the left, I must be some sort of lefty wokester. But, if you don't understand these things that are going on in the world, you're not going to understand what's happening when you're trying to evaluate what's going on in markets. Sometimes it doesn't change evaluation of price, but in the outlook for markets in general, it would. So you do need to know kind of what's going on both sides, whether that's, being woke. If you are woke, you already know, but you should know what's going on the other side, and not with a measure of prejudice, but with a measure of interest, because it would be either interesting to your side in terms of your point of view, or if you're on the right, you need to know what's going on the left, where it's turned increasingly woke and pushed many of the people who were on the left to the right. So you've got that kind of dynamic as well. So there's strategy there as well. So if you're on the left and you see that everything to the right of you is just being pushed further right, you have a strategy of dwindling returns, right? So you have to come up with a strategy in order to rope those players back in the game. And the same for the right. So and if you understand politics and dynamics, it helps you understand markets too, because what drives it all? Money. Everything about money drives everything that you see around you. And that's where we got into our my particular beliefs in the measure of a nation and its strength monetarily lies within its energy output. And it's not just what you think of as classical energy. It is literally the people. It's energy. And energy production is much more than just, gas, electricity, generated by, wind or water or earth, fire. Oh, sorry. But it's far bigger than gas and the electrical grid itself. It is the human power behind it that creates money and creates value for money. And if that is broken, which it is, then you're going to see corruption on all sides, everywhere, all around you at all times. And that's where you have something like Bitcoin that can move in and infiltrate that system, giving those players in the game who are allowing its infiltration the false sense of security that they can control it, even though they understand that it's infiltration. But they can do it. We're powerful enough that we can control it, but they can't. And then it becomes the production, because our energy production does not meet what the currency supply is. And therefore you have runaway inflation that's not stopping. It's ticking back up. So you need that measure of transparency built into the energy layer, and that's through people and electricity. And for those that argue against it, like, oh, you could just flip a switch. What if electricity all goes away? Well, guess what? So are you. You're going away with it, because most people aren't going to be alive if that happens. So you won't need gold at that point. You won't need Bitcoin. So it's either you need Bitcoin. It's not a gold versus Bitcoin scenario in that case, because as soon as somebody in a situation like that, in doomsday, I love the doomers that want to point out that Bitcoin is only as good as the electrical grid, is because so are you. Like, and if we're going to go back to trading seashells or we're going back to wampum, or if we're going to use gold, right? How long are you going to survive before somebody comes and takes your gold, right? And then once you trade it all away, and there is technology rediscovered for electricity, and then understanding that there is a Bitcoin network that runs on it, now you're in control of the damn world. So, that's a lot of, where that comes from. The energy output of a society is only as good as its people. And when it's over leveraged in the manner that it has been, there's solutions, and the electronic solution is Bitcoin right now. And that's, I believe, into the future, the way that it's going to be. It's going to be infiltration. And through that infiltration, it will then create a measure of transparency, it will continue to infiltrate that system, and then you'll get a side-by-side system where Bitcoin is literally backing the energy underneath it. So it's going to be a beautiful thing. It's probably not gonna happen in the time horizons that many people have estimated, but it will happen. So, not financial advice, but I'm buying lots of Bitcoin still. I own lots of Bitcoin. Told you guys to buy the lows at 15.5. And if you were on a derivative exchange, it went even lower. So we were measuring spot, and we nailed that one. And we nailed every move on the damn way up. So now let's keep going. Remember the criteria that I set for today, and then we're going to be going forward with probably a Bitcoin in 60 seconds later tonight, if my voice can hold out. Ivan, I have no idea what you mean. What do you mean? I just explained what I mean. If you just joined, you can roll back and listen to what I meant. We've talked about this before. It's about energy production, and Bitcoin's going to eventually infiltrate not just the financial system, but the energy production system at a base layer. It's more than money. That's my point. And this is something that, I think Jason Lowry did a very good job of making the case for it being a defense option. You can only become a viable defense option if you are the base layer of energy output. And when we talk about energy output, we're talking about energy output of a society, not energy output of the electrical grid. That is just one layer above, and the layer that Bitcoin will run on and runs on currently. And in order for it to be a defensive technology and offensive technology, which is what Lowry proposed, which is not a new idea, that it's a fairly well-established idea that he expounded upon from the eyes of somebody in Intel, and specifically Space Force intelligence, right? So he did a very good job of illustrating what has and aggregating what has already been discussed, and coming up with new applications for it from the defense and offensive side of things. But Bitcoin is bigger than money, and it will be bigger than money, and it's going to infiltrate every bit of the financial system through infiltrating energy production of a society. And it will take a while to get there, but it's going to go through stages and steps, and it's probably not going to be traded as money at some point, because it will become the ledger or the measure and check and balance for the entire energy output system. You have to have something that runs on top of that. So you will have a derivative of some sort, whether that be a fiat currency or another coin or digital system. But because it's underpinning the entire thing, it will allow for those systems to do what they do while maintaining a measure of transparency. And I think that's good. Will I ever sell all my Bitcoin? No, probably not. Let me put it this way. The only time I ever sold Bitcoin was back in 2012 when I had our class build Bitcoin Core, build on Bitcoin Core, and mine. We built miners. Back then, it was just servers could mine. We didn't have specific ASICs, although there was ASICs. And then we mined Bitcoin, and unfortunately, I sold it 2012, 2013 timeframe. I don't want to talk about that though. I got back in the game later, and have not really sold. I sold some spot in the 2019 highs when it rejected the monthly all-time high on the weekly, and the weekly started to turn. I sold a little bit, but bought right back, at the lows as things came down. I bought back like twice as much, if not more. And then I was not financial advice, but I was explaining to people what I was doing at the lows for Bitcoin when it was, 25 and under, 20K and under, into the low that we were calling for at 15.5. I had mentioned, you probably want to pack your bags. Not financial advice, but that's what I'm doing. And for a while, I was basically, hey, anything under 20K, I'm in on. It's accumulation time. And but I trade for income. I want to make money. I want to go do nice things. I want to buy nice things. You trade. Keep what I got, and I trade with either fiat or I'll leverage up inverse Bitcoin that I hold. That is currently, it's separated and meant for trading. So. Yeah. The DGen chart is resetting. Could it bounce off the lower second after an impulse down, rejection at the upper first, and then tag at the lower second? Could it take out that 37,900 and go back up? What did we hit here, by the way? That little spike high, 37,984. See, because the actual spike high got to just under, it's still just the run of the monthly up there by the upper second, which I don't even recall how many days ago that Bitcoin in 60 seconds video was, but we fulfilled those targets pretty much to a T. And we're just gonna have to watch today's close. Stoke is pointed up, momentum's pointed up at the bullish control zone. It's got room to run, by the way. If we get above 38.5, it's 39 to 40K above there. Eventually 41.8 to 42, maybe more. But I think that's going to do it for today. I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend and come back later today for the Bitcoin in 60 seconds kind of wrap up coming into the weekend. And there should be one. I should be able to get my voice to hold out for at least 60 seconds to do that recording. So, and then, you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please have a wonderful weekend. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. And with all of that being said, I'm going to bid you adieu. You have a great one, guys and gals. Thanks for hanging out. With all of that said, Landy out.